And for okie dokie, and since that started up, those of you who are on right now, please be aware that we are recording this session. And with that said, I'd like to welcome everyone to the BSC 50th Anniversary Workshop, Encountering the Words of Shinran. Yeah, and it will be conducted by Professor Dennis Hirota, and I will be introducing Professor Hirota shortly. I just wanted to mention some things for everyone's awareness. First is that, again, we are recording this session, so just be aware that we are recording this session, and we hope to, within a week, to be posting the recorded session on the BSC YouTube site. Another thing to be aware of is that through the session, with the exception of time for some question and answer, please basically turn your audio off, and we do have the ability to, if you're having problems, to help you turn your audio off. So we will assist you with that too. Yeah. And it's up to you. You can turn your videos on or off, but the principal people, Professor Hirota, myself, and the bishop will have our video on. I will mute to just ensure that we don't have feedback. Okay. When it comes to questions, we ask that you use the chat to post your questions. Yeah, and the basic um, plan on that is to answer the questions right after the 2 o'clock 10-minute break. Yeah, and after the conclusion of today's session. So that's when we will be addressing questions. Again, the questions, please write them in your chat. Okay, with that said, oh, and anybody having technical problems, you can write something in your chat, and our the BSc assistant, Carrie Wong, Miss Carrie Wong, will be assisting you on that. Yeah. And while we're mentioning her name, I'd like to recognize that she is our lead technical person. I'd like to thank her for being with us, being our technical person supporting this session. Okay, but without further delay, I'd like to go on to Bishop Matsumoto, who will be welcoming you to this 50th anniversary workshop. So Bishop Eric Matsumoto.
Thank you, Reverend Kevin. Today, as the Bishop and the Interim Director of the Buddhist Study Center, I'd like to welcome everyone to this workshop presentation by Professor Dennis Hirota of Ryukoku University, as was mentioned earlier, part of the Buddhist Study Center's 50th anniversary. This presentation is very special in that we'll not only learn some significant insights, but also gain practical knowledge and actual experience on how to read the words of Shinran Shonin so we can better understand its depth, breadth, and nuances. Again, today, thanks to Professor Hirota, we will have the opportunity to delve into Shinran's thoughts through his writings and will hopefully arrive at a deeper and greater understanding of Namo Amida Butsu, which will make a difference in all of our lives as we come to appreciate all the more the Buddha's great compassion. Unfortunately, due to the pandemic, we had to make big adjustments to our plans, and even this workshop became online. But nonetheless, it does not lessen the gratitude that I'd like to express to Professor Hirota for agreeing to do this virtual workshop from Japan. Thank you, Reverend Professor Hirota. Also, let me express my appreciation to the immediate past director of the BSc, Reverend Kevin Kunyuki, who, with the assistance of Carrie Wong, planned, organized, and will be facilitating today's and the second workshop on August 20th. But we realize having such a workshop online is not the same as having it in person, but we still hope that everyone will gain a lot from the workshop for not only your own sake, but for the sake of others too. Before I conclude, I'd like to invite everyone to please go to the Buddhist Study Center YouTube, the BSC Hawaii YouTube channel, by searching for BSC Hawaii YouTube channel 50th anniversary, where you'll be able to view the BSC's 50th anniversary service and slideshow with messages from several past BSC directors and a slideshow of some very nostalgic photos of BSC and some of its programs and people. A special thank you to the headquarters staff, Derek Inoue, Reverend Daido Baba, and Carrie Wong as well, who created the online service and the slideshow. And to those who contributed messages and photos, thank you very much too. To conclude, and I'll turn the mic things back over to Reverend Kevin. I'd like to end by reciting the Buddha's honored name. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Entrusting in all-inclusive wisdom and all-embracing compassion. Namanta. 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 Thank you.
Thank you, Bishop Matsumoto. Before we start the workshop, allow me to introduce, well, many of you know him already, but Professor Dennis Hirota. So he's a professor of Shin Buddhist Studies Emeritus and a research fellow at Ryukoku University, Kyoto. He is the head translator of the collected works of Shinran, published in 1997, and has published books and articles both in Japanese and English on Japanese Pure Land tradition, particularly the thought of Shinran and Ippeng. He has served as visiting professor at the International Research Center for Japanese Studies, Kyoto, and Numata visiting professor of Buddhist Studies at Harvard Divinity School. His books include Ashura's Harp, Engagement with Language as a Buddhist Path, published 2006, Towards a Contemporary Understanding of Pure Land Buddhism, published in 2000, and Shinran Shūkyō Gengo no Kakumeisha. Well, and that's in 1998. Noah Bold, 1986, and is the co-author with Professor Ueda Yoshifume. And that's Shinran, an introduction to his thought, and in 1989, and is published on Buddhism in the Aesthetic Thought of Japan in Wind in the Pines, 1995. So without further delay, let me turn the mic over to Professor Dennis Hirota, Reverend Professor Dennis Hirota. Hirota Sensei.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for the introduction, Bishop Matsumoto, and also for all the work in organizing this workshop, Reverend Kuniyuki. I'm very happy and honored to be able to give this workshop at the Buddhist Study Center, especially as a commemorative project for the 50th anniversary of the founding. I remember visiting the center before the present facility was built, and I'm very happy to see that it continues to flourish now. I'd like to begin by making a comment about the purpose of the workshop. And I think here I'll start this share screen. If I can get back on here. Oh, okay, we'd start here. I think on the screen now there's the brief explanation of the workshop.
Yeah, it's up there, Sensei.
Okay, good. As I mentioned here, Shinran wrote, especially late in his life, from his late 70s, for the ordinary people, his parishioners, his followers in the Kanto region, in his letters and so on. His late writings were intended to convey his religious awareness to the ordinary people, many of whom could not read and could only listen to his words being read. His writings, therefore, are very straightforward. He uses simpler grammatical forms, but he finds them, I think, useful, certainly adequate, to express with some precision his religious understanding. And therefore, in order to help Shin Buddhists today to encounter Shinran's words as directly as possible, even though they may not be familiar with the Japanese language or with the older forms of the language that Shinran uses. I would like to try to practice reading using materials that are available or will become available. So I want to say this morning, I guess this afternoon, I would like to introduce some of the materials, the resource materials that I think are especially helpful now, and also to begin practicing a bit to see how the materials might be used. And today, I would like to take up several of Shinran's wasan, especially wasan that he wrote, his hymns, very late, very close to the end of his life. Now, there are four kinds of resource materials that I think will be useful. And I think I can get them up on the screen. Let's see. Especially, there are two textbooks that I think are useful. The Buddhist Study Center has put online PDF files of these materials, so they should be readily available. They would also, of course, be readily available through book ordering services. But they're very handy. And the first resource material I'd like to mention is this classical Japanese grammar. It's a fairly large textbook, and as a grammar for students who want to engage the range of classical Japanese literature, there's a great deal of explanation there. For our purposes, I think there's a fairly limited amount of basic information that will be useful for us. And I would like to begin looking at some of this information today. I think if you can scroll through, I will be looking at some of the explanation and applying it to Shinran's writings today. And so you can see how it might work. This grammar is, I think, a really excellent source book. As far as I know, it was the first really usable, easily available Japanese grammar for the older language, the written language. And so I think it would be very handy for us, although it's somewhat cumbersome because, as I've mentioned, it is meant to prepare students to read the whole range of Japanese literature. But we can begin looking at the relevant text, the text that will be useful for us.
Excuse me, Sensei.
Yes.
Just wanted to double check. Are you assuming that we're seeing a certain screen right now?
Oh,
it's
yeah,
only, yeah.
I'm
It's
sorry.
your explanation of the course is still on.
We're back. I thought we were here. Let's see. Let's start here. Now, oh, I see.
Okay, it's still the explanation.
Okay. And now do you have the whole screen?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, I'm sorry. This is the title of the grammar, and we'll be looking at this text, as I say. Also, now this is no longer useful. Okay.
Just so you know, what we're seeing is that we are seeing the actual wasang, but it takes up the whole screen. We do not see the shirane right now. I assume that's what you want. Yeah. Okay. Now it's yeah. Okay.
And now we're back. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, hopefully we're okay now. Okay. The second resource material is the second volume, a companion volume that Professor Shirane prepared as a reader and dictionary. At the end of the second volume, there is this essential dictionary, which gives a large number of vocabulary with again some grammatical explanation as well as detailed definitions. This is very useful for us because it is keyed in part to literature from Shinran's period, from, for example, Kamo no Chome's 10-foot square hut and so on, which is relevant to the period and the sort of outlook of Shinran's writings. So we'll be looking at this dictionary also. And this is given as a separate PDF file that is uploaded onto the Buddhist Study Center website, this workshop website. And then there's a third resource that I hope many of you are familiar with already. This is the second volume of the collected works of Shinran, which, as indicated here, includes a glossary of Shin Buddhist terms. It's somewhat arbitrary, but it's an extended glossary, which was prepared at the time that we were translating the various volumes of Shinran's various writings. And it was prepared for each volume and then gathered here at the end in the collected works as one sort of complete glossary. So I hope you will use the glossary as a kind of resource for basic explanations of Shinran's usage of various terms. And then one further resource material will be, it's in preparation now, but will be this kind of translation with romanization and the original of 16 important passages from Shinran's writings. This is in preparation, but some of the passages will include fairly detailed grammatical notes with references to the Shirane volumes, his grammar, his dictionary, and then also to the glossary in the collected works of Shinran. And also there may be cross references to other passages in Shinran's writings that are useful to illuminate the passage that we're reading. So this morning, as I say, what I would like to do is to use these 4 resource materials and show how they might be used in reading a passage from Shinran in Japanese. So for those of you who are familiar with the classical Japanese, the grammar and so on, this will be, I don't know, a kind of maybe a high school review. Hopefully it won't be too boring. But basically, we'll just go through, look at some of the grammatical forms, some of the terms that Shinran uses, and to see how these kinds of understanding can be put together in an interpretation, a translation into modern English. So I would like to begin, as I say, with the hymns. The hymns that I've selected to look at are from the last volume, the last sort of volume communicating the teaching of Shinran's hymns, the hymns of the Dharma ages, and in particular his hymns of self-reflection, Gutoku's hymns of lament and reflection. I've selected this because although they're very personal in a sense for Shinran, and that the language is very straightforward and the grammatical forms are quite clear, I think, on the whole. Shinran wrote his hymns as a systematic presentation of the Pure Land path in the vernacular, in ordinary Japanese. It was the first first writing that he wrote, composed after his completion of Kyogyo Shomondri, of his teaching practice and realization, his main doctrinal work. So in these hymns, he is attempting to communicate in a way that the ordinary, his ordinary followers, his parishioners, could understand, and probably also could keep in mind. They're easily memorizable, and today still they are used as a part of the ordinary service or formal services following the chanting of Shoshinge. These particular hymns are in general not used in formal services, but the wasan form, the hymn form that Shinran uses, was meant to be a means, a form that people were generally familiar with, say, found comfortable with, and that was sort of easily comprehensible. The general form is the traditional Japanese verse form of 7 5-syllables in each line. Shinran sort of fudges that, but in general, he follows this limitation of 14 syllables per line, which also requires that he be as straightforward as possible. So let us begin looking at this first hymn. I'll read the English translation. This is not directly out of the collected works of Shinran. I've tried to make it as literal as possible in order to compare it with the Japanese. Although I take refuge in the true Pure Land way, it is hard to have a true and sincere mind. My existence is one of falsity and insincerity. A mind of purity is also completely lacking. And so here, the deep self-reflection that Shinran speaks of in his title, Jodo Shinshu Nikki Suredomo, Shinjitsu no Shin wa Arigatashi, Koke Fujitsu no Wagami nite, Shoujo no Shin mo sarani nashi. So let's take this line by line and then see how the grammatical forms are explained, illuminated by Shirane's grammar. The first, of course, Jodo Shinshu, you are all familiar with in the glossary. This maybe if looking. This is given as Shin Buddhism. And this is something that as translators we debated, and eventually we did not use this as a standard translation for Jodo Shinshu throughout the translations in the collected works of Shinran. As explained here, I would just, since this is brief and fairly significant, I'll just read this. Shinran uses the term Jodo Shinshu to mean the true essence, the literal meaning of Shinshu, of the Pure Land Jodo teaching of his master Honen. So this is Shinran's basic meaning, and this sense of the true essence of the Pure Land way, of Pure Land Buddhism, essentially. And this is closer to the translation that eventually we used in the rest of the translations from Shinran's writings. It is his basic meaning. The glossary continues. His successors, however, came to use it as the name for their school, with Shinran as the founder, thus distinguishing it from other Pure Land schools that also claimed to succeed Honen's teaching. So later it became the name of the school of Buddhism, the Shin Buddhism, in that sense. We were hoping for something closer to the sense of Zen Buddhism, which is not necessarily tied to, for example, the Soto Shu or Denzai Shu and so on. But eventually, we decided that this as a translation for Shinran's Jodo Shinshu, this was rather difficult. So here, Jodo Shinshu, the true Pure Land way, the true essence, the true core, the true meaning of the Pure Land path. This is Shinran's meaning, and for Shinran, he was a disciple of Honen to the end of his life. He meant to try to illumine the true understanding of Honen's, the Pure Land path that Honen taught. And I think this is his meaning here. Sojo lo Shinshu ni, and I think we need to get into the grammar here. This is it's called a case particle. In Japanese grammar, there are still heated controversies over how to classify words or what particular particles mean or how they're related to each other. We don't really have to get into this. Essentially, Shirane explains what he means. No. This used to be searchable. This is mine, isn't it? Is this just, oh, it isn't, okay. Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. See, okay, so this is Shirane's general explanation of what he means by a case particle. You don't have to pay a lot of attention to this. We will go on to the particular meaning of ni in a moment, but there are a number of particles that Shirane classifies as a case particle, and basically it just indicates how a word relates to the words that follow. So it's quite straightforward and simple. Now, for ni, this is the case in modern Japanese also. It indicates a place of action, a time of action. Here, probably a destination or direction of action. So on page 162 of Shirane's grammar, it gives this explanation, and you can see that it fits rather handily here with the meaning of in. So in Jodo Shinshu. Then in the next word here, ki sure domo. This is a kind of common sort of compound word in Shinran's writings. Ki here means to take refuge. It's probably a kind of abbreviated expression for kie. And I thought I might introduce here a very handy dictionary, the Wiktionary, which is online. Let's see, I had meant to call it up, but I'm not sure we can. And you can see how it works. But if you're interested in any particular character, then you can quite easily just copy it off the original here and plug it into the Wiktionary. It will take any language basically, and it's quite handy because it's not restricted to Japanese. It gives all sorts of background information, and you can see it gives a number of definitions, including this one here, Kie, Buddhism, refuge. So to go for refuge, to take refuge, even if you are not, if you don't have a dictionary of Chinese characters and so on, it's very easy to use this, just to copy and paste. So I just sort of keep a notice to that. I found it only recently, but I think it's quite handy. And you can see here, key in this sense of kie fits quite well here, of refuge in the Pure Land Way. Jodo Shinshu ni ki is the compound here, ki, suredomo, kis. The su here is a conjugation of a verb. The modern suru is simply to do. And this is still the case in modern Japanese. You can make a noun into a verb by simply adding suru. In classical Japanese, it's simply su. Let's see, we don't need this. So this su is a very common word. You can see here in Shinane's grammar that su simply means to do, and he explains later on here as a helpful hint. Su is frequently combined with Sino-Japanese nouns to create verbs. And this is extremely common in Shinran's writings, especially since many of the terms come from the Chinese. So we find these examples, ice and koranzu, or very commonly in Shinshu, shinzu, to entrust, to believe, and so on. So just taking the term, the one Chinese character in the original reading, the Chinese reading, the way the Japanese read the characters, and adding su can turn it into a verb. So here, kisu, to take refuge in the true Pure Land Way. The form of the verb, let's see, is given here. There are essentially 6 conjugations of Japanese verbs. This is a part of the more complicated side of the classical Japanese grammar. But I think using these abbreviations, you can sort of see the maybe we should start first. It's on about page 25 or so. I need to get back to. Well, this will come up later. It's not so important at this point. But there's 6 conjugations. They're used with different kinds of endings. Usually the dictionary form is this SS, the shushike, the final form, the form that would occur if this verb comes at the end of the sentence. This final form is a command form, the imperative form. This is very rare in Shinran. But this form here, it's called the Izenke IZ here. This is also known as the already form. Something has happened, and then it connects with some particle, a suffix that gives a further nuance. So this is the form we have here. So here, Shinran takes refuge, has taken refuge. So it's this already form. And it is followed by this suffix domo. Which in the let's see. Is has this meaning here, but Shirane explains it's a direct concessive. The meaning is but, though, although. So together with this already form of the verb su, I do this, but, or even though I do this, here in this case, even though I take refuge in Jolo Shinshu. So that is in the first line. Perhaps if there are any questions up to here or any comments. So with this first line, I think you can see how the resource materials can be used. I've tried to give sort of references that will be helpful in finding exactly where the explanations are for these different forms. Also in the glossary of Shin Buddhist terms and so on. So my hope is that eventually, for those of you who are interested and who are just coming to this reading of Shinran, that after a while, after reading through several passages, you'll feel comfortable and you'll get used to some of the forms that Shinran uses over and over again. As I mentioned at the beginning, Shinran uses a very limited vocabulary, a very limited number of the grammatical forms and expressions. but he tries to be as direct and as precise as possible. He's extremely precise in his use of the grammar. So it's not that difficult. Much of the classical grammar is filled with ambiguities and nuances that are very often very difficult to determine. In Shinran, this is not usually the case. So if there are no questions or comments, we'll go on to the second line.
Excuse me, Sensei, just a reminder to the attendees, please feel free to write your questions in the chat, then we'll know that you have a question. Yeah, and then I'll let Sensei know, but at this point, there's nothing in the chat.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. It's a little cumbersome at first, but as I say, I think the resource materials as a whole are extremely good for this kind of reading. And in other words, they're very they should be helpful for reading Shinran's writing. The second line, Shinjitsu no Shin wa arigatashi. Shinjitsu, both of these words, both of these characters are used basically to have this full range of meaning, true, real, sincere. And I think I'll leave it here. I've given one example from the translation. I won't bring it up here, but you can just plug each of these characters or both of the characters into the Wiktionary and look it up. And I think you will find that basically this range of meanings is something that perhaps doesn't really carry over into modern English, but all of these meanings are held in the word. And Shinran basically views, for example, this kind of expression, Shinjitsu no Shin. Shin is for heart and mind, for kokoro, a true and real mind. There is a true, real, and sincere being honest, being genuine, being actual, being sincere. These are all implied in these words for Shinran. For Shin, and it's given in the reading of the kanji, based on the Chinese. Usually, it can be read as kokoro, and it's in the dictionary on page 225. Here. So this is also useful, I think. We are always it's unsure of how to translate it, mind or heart, if we use only one word. But you can see it has a wide range of meanings for the sort of subjective workings of the mind, spirit, thought, judgment, will, intention, feeling, emotion, affection, sympathy, and so on. So when Shinran speaks of Shinjitsu no Shin, it's Shin or Kokoro in this very broad sense of all the kinds of subjective workings of the human mind. the next word, wa. Uh, 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 this is a topic marker. It does not indicate the subject. It might be translated as for or concerning, with regard to, and so on. It has the sense of a kind of emphasis often. We can look also in, well, the dictionary 272, since we're here. This doesn't resolve for some reason. It, there's the dictionary gives a fairly full grammatical explanations as well as detailed definitions. So once you get used to the explanations in the grammar, it's handy simply to use the dictionary in looking up common words and particles and so on. I don't know why this doesn't resolve. But there's also an explanation in the grammar for wa. See it here, and basically it's a topic marker. It distinguishes. The important thing is it should not be taken as indicating the subject of a sentence, the grammatical subject, as for when it comes to, and so on. I have it here as the object of this sentence, but basically a literal translation would be, as for a true and sincere mind, there is, it's hard to have any such mind. It's something like that. And then arigatashi. This is, of course, a precursor of the modern arigato, arigatai. Basically, the ari is the to be verb, to exist, to have, and gatashi means basically hard, difficult. Probably the meaning is not simply that it's hard to do something, but here it's exceedingly rare. It's improbable. There's something close to sort of impossibility we cannot expect. So in the dictionary also, this again, as a suffix to the be verb, an action difficult to pursue, complete, and so on. Simply improbable, I think. And here, here we have arigatashi, rare, unusual. As I say, for Shinran, this essentially the word impossible is not used, but arigatashi has something of that very difficult, improbable, exceedingly rare sense. So it is hard um, to have a true and sincere mind. This does not mean like if you really try, you can manage it. The self-reflection is that it simply does not occur for them. Then the third line, my existence is one of falsity and insincerity. Koke fujitsu no wagami ni te. Here, Shinran uses a kind of compound Chinese characters for koke, ko, munashi, empty, vain, futile. Ke means temporary, provisional. I give an example here where Shinran explains this term. I don't think we need to look it up here, but it's an important term for him, and he explains it fully in a commentary for Fujitsu. Here, fu, this character means not or non or un. It's often connected with verbs and adjectives. Jitsu, we've seen before in Shinjitsu, real, genuine, sincere, or in, again, this jitsu is in Japanese read makoto, and makoto is in the dictionary. Perhaps you can see it here. Here. So here also you can see the full range of meanings and he gives the characters again shin and jitsu here. So truth, actuality, reality, sincerity, a very broad sense that it carries for Shinran. Then koke fujitsu, falsity and insincerity. No, here an attributive. Maybe we should look at this. Okay. Here. No is a case particle again, a case particle showing the relationship between words. No is a subject marker. This is quite common in the classical literature. No and ga are basically the sort of subject markers. And they both also are attributive, that is, indicate that the preceding nominal modifies the next word. So koke fujitsu, this falsity and insincerity, but it modifies waga mi. Waga for my, if you look it up in the dictionary, basically the wa is a pronoun meaning I. And again, the ga is an attributive case particle. So essentially, this means my. And then me here. This is an important term, broad usage. And you can see here, this is the word, and it means basically sort of self, perhaps in wagami, sort of myself, in a very broad sense, including sort of one's entire existence. So it's sort of including body or a position in society, status, sort of one's lot or circumstances, one's place in the world, and so on. Life, a very broad meaning for me. This character is often associated with the physical body, but in expressions like this, wagami, the me indicates one's entire existence. So my existence is one of falsity and insincerity. And at the end here, nite. This is a kind of common form. At times it's troublesome. I think we can take it here that the basic form is nadi. It's a connective form, ni, and then a conjunctive te, which just means and, connecting it to the next line.
Sensei,
Yes.
it's I forget the actual timing, but it's 3 our time and probably 10 your time.
Yes.
So it's the time for, it's coming, time for break. So if you can conclude this sentence, that would be great.
Okay. Yeah. Here. Let's just take a look at ni here. Okay, this is it. So it's nadi, which simply makes an assertion. Is X is Y, and so on, and it's this form which connects with the conjunctions and so on. So is and my existence is one of falsity and insincerity, and then it connects with the next line. So perhaps we can take a break here, and if there are comments or questions, or perhaps they can be formulated during the break, and we can look at them after the break. So
yeah. Thank you, Sensei. And as Sensei mentioned, now's the time to put your questions in the chat. Also, just so Sensei knows is that we do have 2 questions that did come up that we can consider after people come back from the break. Yeah.
okay, great.
Yeah. So let's take a 10-minute break, approximately 10 minutes. So according to my clock, we should be back by about 3:15 or so, the latest. Yeah. So far, Okie dokie, yeah. Thank you for turning on the recording. I will share the 2 questions we have so far. And if you have any more that come up, please put them in the chat. Yeah. So here's the first question. And for now, I won't, I'll just, read the question. And if the person that originated the question, wants to follow up or identify themselves, you're free to do so. But I'll just read the question at this point. Okay. So here's the first question. It said, if we wanted to use this to recite the 3 refuges, she's referring to, the person's referring to the ki in Kie. If we wanted to use this to recite the 3 refuges, is it Buddha Kisure, Dharma Kisure, Sangha Kisure? So that's the question.
Let's see. I'm not sure of the regular expression, but it would.
Just to help a little bit, since I think the regular Japanese expression is Namo Kie Butsu, Namo Kie Ho, Namo Kie So.
Yeah, so it's not in Japanese, basically. I mean, it's there, but so the question is how would that come out in Japanese? It would not be sure. It would the final form for the verb su is su. In other words, su is the dictionary meaning. So it would be su probably. The surya form is the already form, or what Shirana calls the perfective form. And so you do something but, or there's some sort of conjunction that connects to some further thought. So that would not be the form used. But yeah, so the regular ending form, final form for the verb su is su. I'm not sure that answers the question.
Well, I think my compliments to the person. I think they're very ambitious, but it goes beyond, I think, the purpose of the workshop. In other words, they're already trying to use the language. Whereas I think the purpose of the workshop is to give you annotated translation that gives you an idea of the grammar rather than actually teaching you the classical Japanese. You see what I think the slight confusion is. They already want to start forming sentences, but that's not the purpose, I think, of what you're doing here, is that you're giving them a translation with grammatical annotation, I think. In other words, the purpose of this workshop is not to learn classical Japanese, right, and to use it. Or am I wrong?
Yeah, that's fine. Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, but that I mean, pretty ambitious, and that's something that they may want to consider in the future, yeah, because I know there are classical Japanese classes. Yeah. Okay, now on the second question, again, I think it's just a matter of clarification. It says, I wonder how to know when to use Shinshu versus Shinjitsu if they both mean true. I think what it is that the assumption that when the sound shin is used, it's only one meaning. And I think that's why in the Japanese, you use the kanji, which clarifies what the meaning of the sound is. Whereas in English, in a lot of cases, there isn't that many homonyms, right? So, uh,
Right.
yeah.
Um,
But anyway, I'll leave it to you. I also wonder how to know when to use shinshu versus shinjitsu when they both mean true.
I see. The okay, Shinjitsu, um, uh, it, basically in Shinran's writings occurs as a kind of adjective. So right, so it's used for true, real, sincere, and so on. But Shinshu for Shinran is a kind of technical term, and not a sort of common term like Shinjitsu. Um, so Shinshu, the shu is the basic um, word in the compound, and the shu. Let's see. Again, you can plug it into the Wiktionary, and you'll get a variety of meanings. But for Shinran, basically it means the true essence, the core, the message, the meaning, the true significance, and so on. This is not a it doesn't modify something. Usually it's a noun. I don't know whether that's clear, but um,
It sounds clear, and yeah, I think they thank you for the explanations.
yeah. Again, I find a word like shu is very common, so you get a lot of different explanations. But it's interesting to look and to see how the word was used in in Chinese and then in Japanese. So that's always one possibility.
Okay, I'm looking at my comments. I don't see any new messages. Maybe let me give them another minute to type something in. Otherwise, we will go on.
All right.
Okay, and if no, I'm sorry, a comment or a question does come up, we will record it, and uh, we can present it at the end of the workshop at around, when we come to a conclusion at 4 p.m. And so we can stay on for a little while. Okay, Sensei, I'll turn over the mic over to you so you can continue your explanation.
All right. I think we're at the fourth line of the hymn. So we've come down. Although I take refuge in the true Pure Land way, it is hard to have a true and sincere mind. My existence is one of falsity and sincerity. And then it ends with this sort of conjunctive te and here. This last ni te is and then we go on to the fourth line, shoujo no shin mo sarani nashi. Shoujo in ordinary Japanese, this would be kiyoshi. In the classical here, this is the first character that is used. Let's see here, you can see it here. This is the same jo as in jodo, so pure, And then for sho here, this kiyoshi, unsullied, pure, clear, and so on. So a pure mind. Shoujo no shin. Again, the shin is the same as here. You can see the character for kokoro. Again, heart, mind, all of one's sort of subjective workings. A pure mind, and then mo. It's what Shirane calls a bound particle. This term is somewhat loose, and it's not really clear in English. This is in Japanese, it's the kakari musubi, where you use a particle and then you have to use at the end of the sentence a certain verb form. And that's what is bound together. It doesn't necessarily have very much in the way of meaning. But the word here, mo, we can see, I think it should come up. Last time it came up, maybe. Here. Yeah, it means also or and in places, some sort of addition to, and so on. It can be emphatic. Here, probably and also, even to shoujo no shin mo. In other words, not only is shinjitsu no shin absent, it doesn't exist in one, the pure mind also. And then sarani is emphatic, not at all. It is in the dictionary. We can. This also in modern Japanese. Sorry, this one. Here, sarani, still more, followed by a negative, not at all. So nashi, the negative, and so the meaning here, not at all. Again, a kind of emphatic negative. So I put here completely lacking, sarani, nashi, non-existent, utterly non-existent. And so you can see here that the weight of this arigatashi also, not just hard to do, but really not to be expected, the sort of improbable meaning, impossible, basically. So shoujo no shin mo sarani nashi, a mind of purity, is also completely lacking. So this, the whole hymn, let's see, the nashi is basically a negative adjective. It's given in the final form here, nashi, non-existent. We can see it here. Here, non-existent, absent, and so on. so you can see the meaning. The adjectives are like these adjectives are like the verbs. Basically, they have 6 conjugations. This is kind of cumbersome when you're reading, but in general, I think if you use the dictionary, you can get the proper meaning. So if there are any questions about this first hymn, can take them up.
Yeah, yes, there's a question that came up in the chat.
Yes.
Okay, the question is, how does the language that Shinran Shonin uses in these verses compare to the passage in Kyogyo Shinsho about beings lacking a sincere / pure mind?
Right. This is a characteristic of Shinran's writings. Even in his hymns, he often alludes or quotes or refers back to the masters. So I probably the place to look is the first citation that I gave here. The collected. I'm sorry, not there. I showed you. Oh, here. If you look, this is a passage from the chapter on Shinjin, passage 13 from Shandao. Shandao's commentary on the Contemplation Sutra, and I think this is the passage that Shinran has in mind while he's writing his hymn. At the same time, I think Shinran gives a very characteristic and a non-literal reading of Shandao's passage, something perhaps more immediate and perhaps thoroughgoing than we find in Shandao's expression. And I think that comes across in this hymn also. So if you compare the passages, and also if you're interested, you can compare Shinran's translation of this passage. I'm sorry, Shinran's reading of this passage with the original in a note that is included in volume 2 of the collected works. It gives both a sort of literal reading of an important part of the passage and Shinran's interpretation of it, which are quite different. So, yeah. Shinran often is alluding back to the masters, but he is also interpreting in his own way. So that's certainly there.
And that's the only question at this time.
Okay.
So, and I'll let you know if something comes up, but I think we can proceed.
Okay. Then let's go on to the next one that as I mentioned at the beginning, often this particular section of hymns is not used in informal services for chanting, like the more doctrinal hymns. But I've selected them partly because they're very straightforward, and I think Shinran here, he is already in his 80s in writing these. He is expressing with great frankness, I think, his own kind of self-reflection. And so the language also, I think, it has a very clear aura that comes across in the grammar. So I have selected it since because I think it's easy to approach the grammar in this way. For hymn 97, I am one of no shame, no self-reproach, and as for a mind of truth and sincerity, there is none. And yet, because of the name bestowed by Amida, virtues are full in the worlds of the 10 quarters. Again, and this is not the translation in the collected works of Shinran, but one that I, in which I have tried to be literal in order to help us read through the grammar. This first compound, Muzam Mugi, again, this is a characteristic of Shinran's Wasan. The Wasan is a very common form in sort of vernacular Buddhist writings meant for ordinary people. Genshin wrote Wasan, Ippen wrote Wasan, but they're rather different from Shinran's. The Wasan, Shinran himself writes, are supposed to be in sort of the vernacular Japanese, as opposed to the more scholarly Chinese of the usual Buddhist scholarship of his period. So they're meant to be in ordinary language, basically, the plain language that an ordinary person can understand. But Shinran, with his attachment to the writings of the tradition, the writings of the masters, often incorporates terms directly, Buddhist terms directly out of the scriptural writings or the writings of the traditional masters in Chinese. So Shinran's Wasan are not necessarily immediately comprehensible, or they use a range of Buddhist terminology that it would not necessarily so immediately familiar to the ordinary, his ordinary parishioners and so on. So I think for Shinran, it's a matter of the importance of these terms and sort of getting used to them and slowly, for example, through the Wasan, through reciting them, memorizing them, gradually deepening one's awareness of the meaning. This Muzam Mugi is also a Buddhist term. I think I give again a passage from the writings. This is also from the chapter on Shinjin, in which these terms are used. I was thinking of scanning it and I wasn't successful, but if you are interested, please look at the passage where these terms are discussed. Basically, it says Muzan, the person, Muzan Mugi, the person of no shame or no self-reproach is really not fully human, and not fully a person. And it comes in the context of teachings that Ajata Shatru receives. So the typical person of evil. Muzam Mugi, basically here, Mu, there is no not to have this character. The same as the character in Zen, the nothingness and so on. Anyway, a sort of general negative. Zan, we translated as shame. Again, you can plug these characters into the dictionary and see the range of meanings that come up. And then Gi, conscious, stricken. These are sort of dictionary meanings: guilty, ashamed. We used self-reproach in this passage from chapter on Shinjin. So no shame, no self-approach. The no we've seen before is a kind of attributive, the modifier. So this noun, no shame, no self-reproach, modifies konomi. The same structure that we've seen earlier. Shirane calls this a case particle, but basically you can take it as a sort of the modifier. This noun modifies konomi. In the previous wasan that we looked at, this was wagami, my self. Here, this self, kono. This is in the dictionary. Probably originally this ko was the this, and the no again was the attributive, but this also can be viewed as a single word now. Also in modern Japanese. So this self and the nite again is and. So this self is one of muzamugi, no shame, no self-reproach. So I've translated here, I am one of no shame, no self-reproach. The M would, the is would correspond with the ni here, the verb form for nari that we've seen again before, with the conjunctive tab, meaning just and, connecting this this clause with the next sentence. So the te here for the and, I am one of no shame, no self-reproach, and makoto no kokoro wa nakeredomo. Makoto no kokoro. This is the Japanese for shinjitsu no shin, basically that we've seen earlier. Here, basically the same meaning. Here using the terms from the Chinese, the scriptures and so on. Shinjitsu no shin in ordinary Japanese. This becomes makoto no kokoro, and as I sort of pointed out earlier, the makoto is in the dictionary. These characters are used to correspond with it. And so a heart mind modified by Makoto, true, real, sincere, heart and mind. The wa is the subject indicator, and as for, given here, this is the wa, I'm sorry, not the subject, topic. As for, concerning, or regarding a mind of truth and sincerity, makoto no kokoro wa nakeredomo. So here, we have the nashi that we have seen at the end of the previous hymn, the negative, non-existent, and here it is given in the already form, the izenke. Perhaps we can look at it. Well, it doesn't seem to come up easily for some reason. I tried to do this earlier. Well, perhaps you can scroll through if you download or look on the website. The nashi is a cool adjective. The ending form is nashi, dictionary form, meaning non-existent, and the already form, or the perfective form. In other words, there is nothing, there is none, and then some sort of a connective. The perfective form is nakare. Sorry, nakere. And it attaches to a conjunctive particle, domo. Here, and you can see domo means but, though, although. This is the meaning that we've seen before. So I am one of no shame, no self-reproach, and as for a mind of truth and sincerity, makoto no kokoro wa, as for this, there is not nakere. So this indicates the absence. It's in the already form, so it's a sort of existing state, and it attaches to the domo, which is this although. So even though, or although, I translated and yet. So once more, I am one of no shame, no self-reproach, and as for a mind of truth and sincerity, there is none, the nashi, and yet nakeredomo, because of the name bestowed by Amida. And this will require a look at the glossary, but okay, mida, frequently shortened to mida, in Shinran's writings, in Pure Land writings. Mida no echo. The no is attributed here, Amida's, and then echo. We have translated this usually the directing of virtue. So it means basically to turn and direct. As a Buddhist term, it has various usages. Shinran's usage is basically in this kind of context. Amida, the working of Amida's vow is to give, to impart, to bestow, to direct Amida's virtues, Amida's wisdom, compassion to beings. If you then look in the glossary, you'll find a fuller explanation. So the glossary of Shin Buddhist terms on page 179, I think is useful to look at here. Again, the no is attributive here. So the name, I didn't explain this yet. The mina, the mi is honorific, and this is a characteristic of Shinran's writings and Pure Land, the Buddhist writings in general. At present, also for matters of Abhida or the teaching and so on, honorifics are used. This is the case, and we can see this in the second workshop, the case for verbs also. We'll see it in action in the next slide. But whenever Shinran refers in his Japanese to Amida Buddha or Buddhas or the teaching and so on, he will use an honorific. Here it is this, the mi is simply added as a prefix. And then you can see it has various pronunciations with the same, written in the same character. But here the mi simply as a prefix for the na, the name of Amida. To indicate the honorific sentiment. Nas for name. Again, it may be useful to look at the glossary for the name in the second volume of the collected works of Shinran. So Mina, basically Amida's name. Namo Amida Butsu, and so on. The name and Eko no, the main, basically the name of Amida's directing of virtues, the name imparted, bestowed, directed to us by Amida. Here, Amida no Eko no Mina. Nareba. Here, the copular auxiliary verb nari is again an assertion. The name is basically, and again here the perfective form. In other words, this is this already is in motion, already exists, and then there's some sort of conjunctive particle. The ba, there's the ba that's commonly used in modern Japanese to mean if. In the classical, after the isenkei, the ba is usually a logical connection, a causal connection, because and not if, because here. So because of the name directed to us by Amida, because of the name bestowed by Amida, and so on. And this is the meaning here. The spa is quite important. Often it's confused with the modern meaning of ba, and it means if, as though this were some sort of conditional. Of course, it is not. The nare isenkei perfective. This is already existing, and the ba is because this is already working. Perhaps we can. Here, this is for the ba. You can see here, I've given the page number, but the use of ba. The part of the problem is that this ba, meaning if, follows a different form, the mizenke, which is the not yet form. So it's important to distinguish this. In other words, whether it's not aba or not eba is very important for the meaning. Here, this ba, this conjunctive particle follows the izenke, the already form, the perfective form, and so the meaning here is the causal, since, because, as the result of. So that's quite good here. I think as a result of the name that Amida has given us, has directed to us, because of this, kudoku wa jippo ni michitamo. So we can go on to the last line here. Kudoku, again, I didn't write this in the page number, but this would be in the glossary. Important to look at. Kudoku often, in general usage, as a Buddhist term, it means the virtues or the merits that accrue through the successful performance of practice. In this case, the kudoku refers to the virtues that Amida directs to us in the name, through the name, so on. So kudoku virtues. Wa is again the topic marker. So as for virtues, and they are, and so on. And jippo is the commonly translated 10 directions. We in the collected works of Shinran, this is probably explained in the glossary also, and it's sort of common as a Buddhist term. The nuance is not really just points of the compass going out in 8 directions and then up and down, but it indicates spaces or places, locales. that there's this sense. So direction in the sense of the world's in that direction, and so I've tried translating it that way. As I mentioned, I think in the collected works of Shinran, we generally translated it as 10 quarters. And this is something D.T. Suzuki also uses it, I think, for the same reason, that it indicates not simply sort of points of the compass, or the sort of laser beam going out in one direction, but places. So it may be a sort of inherently sort of illogical or contradictory or whatever, but it was in order to capture that sense that it was translated as 10 quarters. So the 10 quarters ni, I think we have seen before in the dictionary. It's 42. You can see it here. That indicates a place of action, at, in, on, and so on. Could be a time, a direction of action, and so on. We saw it above as ni, ki, su, to take refuge in, and so on. So it indicates the place and the direction of the action. The main verb here is mitsu, and this is also in the dictionary. Yes, here. And you can see here, to become full. You can see it's intransitive as in this form. So in the form used here. So it means to become full. And it's the simplest conjugation, the mitsu, in the continuative or the connective form, called the renyoke, but this common when it's attached to another verb, it takes this form, and it means to become full. So to become full in the world of the 10 directions. As for the virtues, Amida's virtues directed to us, they become full in, or they are brimming in the worlds of the 10 directions, 10 quarters. Maybe this could be directions here. I'll change that. And then at the very end, we get sort of what is a common feature in the prose writings, especially Shinran's commentaries, notes on once calling and many calling, and so on. Again, when the subject, the topic is Amida Buddha or Buddhism or the teachings and so on, then honorifics are used. This is for verbs, and this is a common verb, honorific verb that is used as a suffix to turn the mitsu into an honorific. So michitamo, when this is written out in kana, for example, it's ma'u, tama'u. It is written the pronunciation is basically Tamo. So you will find it romanized in both ways. We can see it here in the dictionary. No. I know in the grammar, actually. Here, the explanation, tamo is an honorific transitive Yodan verb. So simply, it functions usually, and it does have a verb function, but usually in Shinran's writings, it has basically just an honorific meaning. So honorific supplementary verb attached after the main verb, as we see here. And it follows this connective form, the renyoke, which is given here, the michi, for the verb mitsu. So kudoku wa jippo ni michitamo, the Amida's virtues. As for Amida's virtues, they are full. They are brimming in the worlds of the 10 quarters.
So,
So
Sensei, we're at the 4 o'clock mark, little past it actually.
Okay. So let me just finish up here. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I'll just read through once. Basically, I'm one of no shame, no self-reproach, muzamugi no konami nite. And as for a mind of truth and sincerity, there is none. Makoto no kokoro wa nai nashi nakere domo. But even though this is the case, Amida no eko no mina nareba, because there is work already, because there is the name that Amida directs to us. Kudoku wa jippo ni michitamo. Amida's virtues are full in the worlds of the 10 quarters. Okay, let's finish up here.
Okay, thank you very much, Hirota Sensei. I don't see any other questions in the chat. So if you happen to think of something, you can bring it up at the beginning of the next workshop, and we can address it at that time too. So thank you very much, Hirota Sensei, for sharing your knowledge with us. And again, just as a reminder, this workshop is really meant to explain the annotated translations. And please look forward to, there's a really important work coming up as a combined work with, by Hirota Sensei and Professor Hallisey, addressing those important passages. And so, this is meant to start you off in being able to use the resource effectively. So our next workshop will be on Saturday, August 20th, at 2 p.m. At 2 p.m. We will be starting on time at 2 p.m. And assuming that our recordings are successful, after these workshops are done, we will be making them available on the BSC YouTube site also. Okay. So I guess, let's see, that would be all for today. Again, thank you very much, Hirota Sensei. Thank you, Bishop Matsumoto, for basically giving us this workshop. In that sense, as the director and the bishop. Oh, you have something else to add?
Yeah, I just mentioned that there are two more wasan with two more hymns with the same kinds of notes, grammar notes, with references to the Shirane works and also the dictionary. And so, if people are interested and have the time, they might try to using Shirane's grammar and dictionary and the glossary, using the notes, and to see if that works, see if it's workable.
Very good suggestion, Sensei. And we have made that drive available to people. If you need to access it, or having problems accessing it, you can contact the BSC office, and the contact information is in our materials, and the person helping you would be Carrie Wong. And I'd like to thank Carrie Wong for being our very important background technical support for all of this. So thank you very much, Carrie. Okay, so I guess we're done, guys. And thank you very much for being with us. And yeah, and just so you know, Sensei, there's a whole bunch of thank yous coming up in the chats. So thank you very much for sharing your knowledge with us. Yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Okay, so we'll see everybody on Saturday, the 20th of this month. Yeah, so bye everyone. Thank you very much.